Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Drew Arrington, and tonight we're going to be doing a segment called Why Should We Care? It's brought to you by Do It All Entertainment, which is me, and Do It All Computers, which is also me, and T-Boney Productions, who's doing the filming of this, wonderful photographer who happens to be my wife. Today we are going to have a guest, and her name is Bernardine Boudreau. She is a wise woman in the West, self-proclaimed, and is also a fantastic counselor, a great bookkeeper, and a good friend. And we are going to be talking about, as I said, caring and why should we care. So welcome to the show. Basically, what this show is about is it loving or is it debilitating, this caring thing? I'm going to start off by defining what the dictionary defines as caring, and we're going to kind of explore where this is going to go. So the first definition that I got is caring is a state of mind in which one is troubled, worried, feels anxiety or concern, which is actually surprising to me, even though I see that happening all the time. Also, the secondary definition is a cause or object of worry, anxiety, concern, etc. So my biggest question around caring is, why are we doing this? Well, it doesn't seem to be something that's conducive to moving forward in life, expressing love, because I see people, and a big excuse, actually Bernardine and I were talking a little earlier about it, is it's an excuse of you don't care when they're not getting their way. So let's find out, how do you define caring?
Well, I define caring, I wouldn't even recognize that as a definition.
Right.
Caring to me is it's about having compassion.
Mm-hmm.
I view caring as I am able to actually care about another human being. Mm-hmm. Without loving them, without wanting to be their friend. For me, it's totally separate from what our personal needs are. Mm-hmm. It's about a sharing of humanity. When people have written about being suicidal and someone spoke to them, mm-hmm. or said something caring to them, mm-hmm. and it made all the difference, and these people, there's nobody in their life, because we need that sense of humanity, mm-hmm. that sense of knowing that somebody cares about what we are. But it all comes back to how you define care.
Yeah, exactly, right. Well, and we were talking earlier about compassion and what that means to an individual, because I really do agree. I agree that caring should be exactly what you're talking about. It's something that you say, it's not so much I have a concern for anything on a basis of fear, but it's a concern in general based on your own experience, say, of yourself, or what you've had. Like I'm sure that you've had somebody come into your life that touched you in a way, and it wasn't that they were concerned for you or they were worried about you. It just happened to be an extension of who that person was that touched you in that moment, that created this sense of worth, right? And I think that that's where we get so confused, because I hear people talk about caring a lot, and one of the big things is, well, you don't care. And I find that a lot of people define that caring as the worrying, as the fear-based idea of, well, if you're not worrying, if you're not concerned, if you're not going out of your way for me, that you don't care. And I personally don't define it that way, but I see that the rest of society do so.
I think it's often viewed as a condition of connection.
Right.
That if you're connected to me, then you must care about everything about me. And it's all about me.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, so the whole idea of caring becomes about what I want. And you can show me that you care if you go along with what I want.
Well, and I agree totally, which is one of the reasons that I wanted to start this show is exactly that, is to share what is it that it should be and what is it that we're really using this for, like, and in everyday society. I mean, you and I, you've been working on personal growth since when?
30.
Since you were 30. I've been working on personal growth since I was like 15 to 17 is when I really started in this field.
About the same amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's we're close. And to be able to get to the point of really understanding what caring is you did a lot of, I know that I've done, I can't speak for you, obviously. I've done a lot of introspective work. I've really taken a look at how I express that caring and that kind of compassion that we're talking about, and what it is that I was so upset about when I didn't get that from other people. So that I find that we use it another way of saying caring is that it's a transacting of emotions, right? If you care for me only if you give me, you know, and it's, again, I think it is perception, right? It's not necessarily the same thing for every person. It is that you give me like a pat on the head every once in a while. That to somebody is caring. Whereas to another person, it's if you buy me more candy, or if you get me some clothes, or, you know, however that translates to each individual, but it's still that transaction that they're looking for, right?
It is. I remember in the years before I was given the keys to unlock my knowledge, caring was definitely a word that I used in connection with finding a way to prove that I'm worth something in your eyes.
Right.
So, and being caught up in anything where I wasn't getting enough attention and not viewing it as not getting enough attention, that you don't care.
Right.
Right. And people have often, they bandy that word around, and it is, it's a weapon.
Well, now, and getting into a deeper subject, I find many people taking caring, which is that concern, because I've noticed in my life and dealing with lots of different types of people, that they will equate my loving them based on exactly what they're saying. If I'm not worried or concerned about what they are doing and what they want and what they need, then I am not exactly doing that as caring. And so in my experience, caring, then they've equated this to love. Because if you do not do this in accordance to what we feel caring is, you don't love me, right? Whereas in my world and how I view things, leaving you alone, right? Like letting you do your stuff without my interference of telling you what you should or shouldn't be doing, how you should or shouldn't be living your life, is caring and is loving. It's taking out the equation of one, you have to rely on me to do things in your life, which is what I'm never about. And two, that I honor where you choose to be, right? But that, for a lot of people, is wrong. It's not, you don't care about me because you're not doing these things for me, right? And so that's, you know, I get this experience of people equating caring to not being loving.
And it's interesting because caring it definitely seems to be about connection. And when people are feeling disconnected in their minds, you don't care.
Right.
Because I'm disconnected from you. So I'm not feeling connected, so you don't care. But it's astounding how many people use it as a tool The other cloak that caring wears is martyrdom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I will give up my life to do everything for you because I care.
Yeah,
about
I overcare now. It's like, I'm using caring kind of like as a weapon almost, right?
Exactly.
It's like, I care so much.
Yes. You know, and if you cared about me, you would. It has definitely been used, the whole term of caring has definitely been used as a weapon for a long time in our society.
Well, I mean, and like I said, for the most part, I find, because, and I think that this kind of segues into friendships and relationships and lovingness and, you know, all of the stuff that is expressed, that we've been trained into this notion that we need a return on whatever investment we have, right? That, well, if you were my friend, you would just do this. And that we equate, again, caring as that transaction stuff, that paying attention. I know that for me, when I have a friend in my life and I don't talk to them for a month, they're not upset, right? It's never a question of, oh, well, we've all got our own lives and this is what we do, and, you know, we're putzing about. It's not like you don't think of them every now and again, and sometimes you don't. You're busy in your life and you've got things to do.
Well, here's an example of what I see as caring about people, even people that you know. I met people years ago, 36, 37 years ago. We were friends. We all hung out. We did stuff together. We went our separate ways because they moved on. There was no connection in between. And when I did reconnect with them, 35, 36 years later, that intense caring about who they were as human beings is still there, right? Like, we didn't have to share a whole life together because it was a connection. And as I said, this is where I really see caring is about being connected,
right?
You know, to humanity.
Right.
And so when you make it about connecting and not about a transaction,
right,
it takes on a whole new meaning, obviously not in our dictionary.
Right. Well, and I think that the dictionary writers themselves were in touch with what they saw people using caring for, right? Is that it ended up caring in the dictionary definition and in the way that it's used. I find that it is a very, very fear-based theology of saying, and as we talked about earlier, caring in that respect, having that worry or having that fear-based reality, when you have a child and that child is very small and they don't know the rules of the world. They are impulse-based little feeling machines that, you know, go do stuff that excites them, right? I mean, they're just like, they're like, but they're running out in the street and they're doing all of that stuff. So having that sort of fear-based caring stuff is a really good technique for the parent to go, clue in that their kid needs that kind of attention, because there is no rule base in that head yet. As the kid gets older, and I know having raised a kid, knowing that at a certain point when I observed her being able to cross the street by herself and being able to do those things and have those rules set. Okay, so once I observed her owning those techniques that I'd been trying to teach her and stuff like that, once I knew, and she said, no, I'm done, you don't need to be me anymore. When I saw her take the responsibility and tell me to just basically screw off, I said, oh, good, she's ready. She can go do it now. I don't have to worry. I don't have to care whether she's going to go across the street properly anymore. And so in my mind, I just go, oh, okay, it's time to just let that go, right? It's time to do that. But what I see more and more parents doing is that they become so even more hypervigilant as they get older. And we were talking about that earlier. So
yeah.
Take that narrative, because that was awesome that you pointed that out.
Well, what happens, of course, is we care about our kids when they're little, and we help them learn. And when they've learned how to do things, we let them go and do that. And then when they start to approach adolescence, which is, the early onset of adulthood, they're going to move away from us. Many parents become very fearful about what could happen to their child and totally neglect what they have taught their children.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when I'm speaking to parents of adolescents, I really encourage them to remember what you've taught your child about responsibility and choices. And now is the time for you to allow them to show you that they know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And, care in that way.
Yes.
For them to become responsible adults, being able to make good choices.
Well, and I think and what you were saying is like care in that way. It's a graduation from that fear-based caring to the compassion-based caring, but also learning, I suppose, because. So I'm actually gonna segue here into, because we become parents so young in our lives, and because we don't have that life experience. We just got out of that. Right? And if we had controlling parents that cared far too much way too later, we still are trying to break away from them, right? On some levels. So we create this family or this child, and so we have all of those fears kind of still instilled. We didn't learn, we weren't free enough yet to be able to get past it. And I said, and as you let go, when you transfer that caring, that fearful caring, into the caring that goes to the next level, which is being compassionate, understanding, allowing life, and allowing the lessons that those kids need to learn, right? Because they really need to learn those lessons. And they can't learn all of them from us, right? I can hit my microphone. They can't learn all of them from us. They can't learn all of that stuff from us. So they have to experience that for themselves. And that when you find that parent, they're hanging on to them, what happens?
I really believe too that a lot of how we see parents coming into this fear-based caring into their adolescence and even in their early years is a societal thing. Mm-hmm. from the things that have happened. I noticed a big shift in how people parented and what they allowed their children to do after Michael Dennehy disappeared.
Who is he?
Well, if you were living in Victoria, mm-hmm. you were probably too young, so you wouldn't have paid attention. I was an adult. He was a 3-year-old boy who disappeared from a park.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember hearing something about that. I was
lots of people around.
Yeah.
They were at some baseball game or whatever it was, and it's not that it's never happened, mm-hmm. but with the way news media is now, and the way of the mm-hmm. world, things are known faster and wider across the world. Right. And people then began to be fearful. Today I know a woman who, whatever their personal experience is in becoming parents, they will not allow their 12-year-old daughter mm-hmm. to play in their or anybody else's front yard unless there is an adult right outside with them.
Physically present. Yeah.
Physically present, because they're very fearful. So whatever their experience is, and this has become a societal experience. Mm-hmm. Children being abducted. Right. So people, I've watched my daughter, mm-hmm. as I've encouraged to allow my granddaughter to go to the park, mm-hmm. right, where we can't see her, right, to have that time away, and that's where parents do that fearful caring that encompasses all aspects, not wanting their child to be out of their sight because they can't control what could happen. And with the way society is and the media that we have, there are some horrific things that have happened to children.
I agree. And in the 50s, there were horrific things that happened to children just as well. And it's just they weren't advertised.
That's
a lot
right.
of them were swept under the carpet.
That's right.
And it probably was just as prevalent as it was today, and possibly even more, because we've become so hypervigilant on some levels.
That's right. But we didn't hear about it.
Right, we didn't hear about it.
If it wasn't in your community, you didn't know about it.
Right.
The only one that I'd ever heard of before that was Stephen Trescott.
Yeah.
Now, he wasn't abducted. He was accused
Right.
with the abduct and murder of a young girl.
Right.
At 16 and jailed and did his whole time. But he was innocent.
Right. So they eventually proved that.
And that's the only reason I knew about it, is because then there was a whole book written about it.
Right.
Right. So it was out there.
So you and equating this to over caring or holding on to that fearful idea of caring past their adolescence into that whole idea, you think that it's because partly because of our news media and the amount of fear that it generates.
It is, and parents are able to then take a word that means something nice, caring, and use it as a tool to control. You're not allowed to do that because I care about you and I care about what happens to you.
So, and again, in our parents doing that, in creating or coming from that fear-based standpoint of caring, it also creates that fear-based, well, I mean, I find that it shackles people, because I wrote something recently online that was talking about liking. I said disliking a person is fine, because you avoid them, you don't see them, all of that stuff. But when you like a person, you are now shackled by all of these rules and regulations, like caring being one of them. You have to care. Well, but caring looks differently to different people depending on how they were raised, right? And caring usually depicts, well, again, there's that transaction. If you cared, you would call me once a week, or you would call me once every 2 weeks, or you would, and there's all of these rules and regulations that you're shackled to liking somebody with right now, right?
It's very interesting when you think about the word care and caring, that it really is only used or spoken most of the time when it's used as a tool. Because if they're not using it as a tool, people are using the word love and compassion and empathy and sympathy. But
breaking in, they're still using this caring as a cross section to say those same things, but it means something completely different.
Exactly. When they want to control the situation for whatever their reasons, fear, just wanting to be in control. That it seems to be that's when care and caring comes in. When people use that word, it's like it's that tool.
Well, but it's also, and you say that too, and it zaps into, I care about you, is also that controlling mechanism from not only a parent but a superior. Well, I'm doing this because I care.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, wait a minute, you're controlling me, or you're telling me that I cannot do something that I desire to do, whether it's, say I wanted to go into acting, right? I mean, I've certainly, having gone through acting school, heard some of the stories of some of the kids when they told their parents that they were going to acting school because that's where their heart desire was. It's like, well, I'm not going to give you the money for that because I just don't agree with it, but I'm doing it because I care. And it has nothing to do with caring. It has to do with, again, control.
Control all reactions every time.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And that's, and which is one of the reasons why I want to start doing this show, right? This is being the pilot, by the way. And I'm super happy, and thank you for being on my show. And which is why you see the wires coming up and everything. It doesn't really matter. It's the content that matters as opposed to the scenery. But it's to be able to raise the consciousness of what we are actually doing as opposed to what we say we're doing, right? Because lots of people say, oh, I care. And yet they're utilizing that statement as a form of control, a form of shackling people to an idea. And again, there's as many ideas about caring as there are people to be able to say that. And because in every family, in every way, because we are so differently raised. I mean, you were raised in a completely different family than me. Mm-hmm. I was raised in a family where I was latchkey kid, neglected, psychologically abused and controlled that way, and all of the stuff that ensued from that. My sister and I fighting and all of the turmoil. And you were raised a completely different way. And so it even amazes me that we have a similarity of understanding of caring, right?
Well, when my oldest daughter was young, my husband and I took a course on parenting. And one of the things that it brought out, and it's the same for the definition of caring, mm-hmm. is that he came from two adults who came from two adults, who came from two adults, mm-hmm. and each individual person has a different idea about life, about caring, about loving, about parenting. So it's astounding that parents are ever able to get even close to the same level, because unless there's discussion, because they view things differently, but you don't talk about it.
Right.
So the idea of caring, people don't talk about what it means to them.
Right.
So when I say I care, I am meaning something totally different than what possibly my husband is hearing.
Right.
Because he's coming from what he understands caring to be.
Well, and it's exactly that. I mean, the communication is so important. We're definitely going to have another talk on the vista of communication and how different that we are. I mean, and I'm just going to do a quick segue into that just because it's so much fun. We got a break in 2 minutes. Okay, I'm told we have 2 minutes. So I'm going to actually do the quick segue, and then we can stop for a minute.
Perfect.
And so based on communication, we live in a Western cultural society. And so if you got together with somebody here in Victoria, right, say you went out and you had a great time, you're two very similar people, you fall in love, you do all this stuff. What we mistake in the communications that we have is that because we grew up in the same city, or the same neighborhood, or the same culture, that we have the same ideas, that we were raised by the same type of people. And the truth is so far different than that reality. And we don't even think about it. We've just been taught that we're living in the same reality. And I ended up I was a DJ at a marriage, and I was talking to the two, and one was from like Holland, and she was French Canadian. And I chatted with them afterwards, and I said, "You guys are so lucky." And they said, "Oh, well, you know why?" I mean, they felt lucky, of course, because they were they were getting married, right? And I said, "But you're so lucky in the fact that he comes from a completely different culture, and you come from a completely different culture." And I said, "You guys have a fighting chance for this relationship to do really well because you have a tremendous amount of patience with each other because you already know that your viewpoints are going to be different. Whereas if I marry somebody that was my next door neighbor, I'm going to have a tremendously difficult time because I'm not treating the relationship exactly the way it should be treated, which is exactly that way."
With my first husband, I even said once, "How can you even think like that?"
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we'll be back in a few minutes. Okay. Welcome back to the show. This is Why Should We Care with Bernardine Boudreau, a wise woman in the West, and me, Drew Arrington, your host tonight. I also wanted to just point out that this is going to be on YouTube. There's going to be comments turned on, so you're welcome to do comments, questions, Criticisms, anything that you want to put on there. You can call us like names if you want. If we're going against your philosophy.
Because we don't care.
Yeah, we just don't care. But also put some questions down. Put possibilities for other shows if you want. You know.
And how does that feel?
Yeah, exactly. Any cares or concerns? It was awesome. We had to do care jokes. You know, it's like, yeah. Oh, no, I hear that before you even say it. Okay. Where were we? We were talking a bit about communication. Caring. Oh, well, actually, I you know, on my cheat sheet here, I've written down a couple of things.
Okay.
Self-esteem seems to be tied up too in how people utilize care, right? If they're telling me that I don't care, they're basically saying that I'm not, you know, transacting, right? But to go even deeper than that, that transaction that they're looking for is a validation or a self-validation of some sort. So it seems to me that the people that are using the term caring in that respect have like kind of a self-esteem issue. They're looking.
I would definitely agree with that. And when I use the tool, caring, as a weapon, I definitely had very poor self-esteem. And as I started to grow and learn and be confident in myself, it's when I began to view just leaving the word caring out of my vocabulary.
Right.
Not using it with people. You know, it's when I think about it, it just disappeared.
Right.
Out of my life, because it's not a word that has any real meaning in itself.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that as kids and seeing kids and as a kid, having experienced it in myself, that whole term of, well, I don't care, right? You've heard that one, which of course means that they tremendously do care.
Exactly.
Right? Any adult or mature person would know that they actually do care quite a bit if they're using that term in that. Now, I also use I don't care, but in a completely different context. And one of the things that I was thinking about earlier was I use I don't care because I truly don't. It's I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned with what's going on. I'm not concerned with what needs to happen. It's I truly don't care in that respect.
And I think people also use it instead of saying I don't have an opinion on that.
That's true.
Where would you like to go for dinner? I don't care.
Right.
Well, it's technically you just
dinner.
don't have an opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
It's dinner. I don't have an opinion on where we want to go. But we really banty that word around without any real meaning to it.
Yeah, well, and like I said, I do agree that we all use that as, and then I definitely use it consciously as I don't have a concern for that, because I see caring as concern or worry. And because I equate the word to that, I utilize the word in my context of, no, you're right, I don't care, right? I certainly have had people throw that at me. Well, you just act like you don't care. Well, you're right. You know, and I say that quite often, that is, yes, you are right. I don't care. That does not mean, you know, I don't have any investment in what needs to happen right now. Right? It just means that I don't need it to happen one way or the other. You know, what would you choose? Right?
Again, coming back to, I don't need to have control, so I don't need to care.
Right. Exactly.
And care definitely being connected to control.
The control. Okay, and here's I jotted down a couple of questions, because I know that for me, and this is my own self-esteem thing, it's like don't ever get the impression, by the way, all the audience out there, that neither Bernardine or I certainly think that I have permission to be able to say that, because she certainly said it to me a number of times, that neither Bernardine or I are by any stretch of the imagination some perfect human being that do not have problems or self-esteem issues like everybody else, okay? We do. we've overcome some of them. Or maybe even a good portion of them, but it's not like they're gone.
And learn to recognize when we're having
the issues and having tools to be able to deal with them. You guys, this is so important. I want to get this through to you. Getting the tools to be able to deal with the self-esteem issues, because it all boils down to generally that is the self-esteem issues that we're talking about. To be able to recognize when they come up, and tools to be able to help you walk through them, whether that's a counselor, whether that's a good friend, are really good counselors sometimes, to be able to share your problems with and to sympathize and empathize, actually, would probably be a better way to do it, because we'll have another show on sympathy, actually. But to be able to empathize with you and to be able to help encourage you when you need the encouragement, because we all do. Okay. There's a couple of things that I was thinking about, and so when my self-esteem's low, and somebody goes, "Oh, well, you just don't care about me," and and all of that stuff, and so when my self-esteem's low, I get hit on that level, and I kind of get hooked into, just because I don't care doesn't mean that I don't love, right? And so I get hooked into that whole statement of, well, wait a minute, you guys, you're not understanding what caring means here, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing this, right? But also, there's a couple of questions around. Is not caring sociopathy? Are you not caring because you don't have any feeling, right? Which is what I have absolutely come to recognize coming from other people, right? Well, you don't care, so you must not love me, or you don't feel anything, right? You think that not caring is sociopathy?
Well, again, it's definitely a weapon,
right?
To reel you in. If I don't care. If someone says that to me...
Are you a sociopath? Are you a psychopath?
Yeah,
It's
right?
like...
They're definitely trying to make it be equated with feelings.
Right.
And even in the dictionary, they're not talking about care having anything to do with feelings.
I'm sure that... I looked at the dictionary definitions, and there's about 5 or 7 of them. And I believe, I didn't copy them all down. I copied the ones that were most relevant to what we were talking about, but I believe most of them had to do with worry or concern. Mm-hmm. If not all of them. I'm pretty sure that all of them did, but I can't quote that because I don't have them right in front of me. But I'm pretty sure all of those definitions were equated down to that. And so,
And the flip side is a sociopath really doesn't.
Well, absolutely.
Care.
It's like
they have no opinion, they have no concern, and again, it's all about what they need for themselves and how they're going to get it.
Well, and I think that anybody that says that, well, you're just a sociopath, is again needing you to do something for them that you're not doing, right?
Even if it's just to validate their own esteem.
Yeah, and the next question that I had down is caring, not loving. Obviously, it has nothing to do with that, right? Caring is, if you're equating caring to loving, if you're equating what somebody does for you as love, then if that person doesn't care in your life on contextually, yes, then that does equate to that. In reality, with where we wish caring to be, which is empathy, understanding, sharing, I think that comes into that. Like that whole idea of being able to share of your love and your person, and however that looks, can be part of that equation for caring.
Well, and as I see caring as a connection, mm-hmm. being connected, it doesn't require love mm-hmm. to feel connected mm-hmm. to someone. You actually only need to physically touch someone mm-hmm. often to feel connected. So I definitely don't equate caring with loving at all.
Now here, even on that note, and going that step further, I know that for me, in a connection, I always feel the love, right? I mean, and that's for me as an expression of the individual that I am. When I make that connection, the love's already there. It's sort of like an underlying like hum. It's not something that I'm paying attention to most of the time.
Well,
but
it's interesting because love is really another word like care.
yeah,
That we have a single word that has 1,000
Yeah,
variations
definitions,
of
yeah.
meaning. You know, like, yes, there is that base love for humanity.
yes.
Which not everyone has, but most people do.
Well, I mean, I think that everybody
And-
has it. I just don't think that they know it. I don't, or they haven't felt it, or they don't understand really
there's
what it
something-
was.
There's
Yeah,
something in the way.
absolutely.
Something in the
Okay.
way. So, I mean, and that's how I would use care.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that I can care about someone as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I don't watch the news. Because when I see or hear anything that happens to somebody, I care on a human being level.
Right.
That it makes me feel sad for them, that this is happening in their life. But I don't know them.
Right.
And I wouldn't say I love them, but on that level of humanity.
Right. Well, I mean, now we're getting down to even a deeper, more spiritual question of, you know, if we're going into that realm, and we'll dip into it. We won't talk there for a while because I mean that's another show. It really is. It's another show. We can do like 500 shows on that, and we may as we go, right? But to dip our pool
We'll be very
into
old.
that, yeah, exactly. If we dip a pool into that love, we're talking about different degrees, right?
Exactly.
And to me, in my own philosophy around how love works, it's like it's there. It's like there's no, you know, it's a question of how we feel that towards any specific situation, right? So when you go like that, you say, I have that general love of humanity. I can still love those and still not be concerned about them, right? Again, not caring what's going on with them. I see their plight, but I don't identify, right? And so therefore, I don't have that empathetic feeling going out to them. I do sometimes, absolutely. I've certainly felt it, and been caught off guard that I've been there, right? Like all of a sudden, I'm watching this little commercial thing. Oh, what was it? It was a seatbelt commercial.
I have no
It
TV,
was,
so.
yeah, no, it was an amazing seatbelt commercial where it had the wife and the daughter, and it was the guy pretending he's driving, where they clip their hands around him. It is an amazing commercial. I'm thinking about it. I'm starting to cry. It was just, and it struck me as that kind of caring, per se, but that kind of, I don't know. I mean, to me, it was an expression of love. It wasn't really an expression of caring. It was an expression of absolute love that these people chose to do that, as opposed to the fear of loss, because it wasn't represented like that.
But maybe on a subtle level.
Yeah,
Protecting someone with a seatbelt
absolutely.
is fear of losing them.
Of course. Well, and I mean, I think that, yeah, when it comes right down to it, that caring idea is really sort of steeped in a fear-based understanding of I may lose. I mean, I know that I still have that with my wife, even though I know I love her and that she loves me, and we're in this beautiful relationship. We can communicate better than most people that I know, and all of the stuff that we have going for us, I still have that fear. And that I do lots of things because I care, right? So in this relationship, it's not something that I can say that I'm immune to, right? And I'm not, I am to a degree actually using it to control what is going on. Don't go. Here's a flower. Don't go, right? I mean, but that's a simplification of what I'm doing, right? Because I'm a little bit more complex than here's a flower. Don't go. More complex and subtle, by the way. Well, sometimes. Anyway, my wife is rolling her eyes at me. But again, that's that caring that we're talking about. I care, and so therefore I do these things to prevent.
So when I think about, how we're talking about this, and I think about in my own life, I realize that I really do not use the word care because it doesn't convey what I mean. So people using it as a tool are still not using it to say what they mean.
Yeah, well,
They're not saying, I am afraid
yeah.
of losing you.
And
so I want to.
But and here's the stigma around it too, because we are not taught to communicate properly. We really aren't. We have cats, by the way, just in case you didn't hear that meow. Because we are not taught to communicate properly, and because it's not okay to communicate properly in the society. It's not okay to say I'm afraid. Afraid is not good. We were taught that when we were young. Our parents told us if we were afraid, that was a bad thing.
Or if you say you're afraid, there's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah, there's nothing to be afraid of, or you're, chicken, right? That's a guy stigma, right?
Yeah.
Guy stigma, that afraid is weakness, right? And when you're growing up with that, you can't be afraid. You can't admit that you're being afraid. And so we don't talk about what's real. We pretend that it's not happening. And so again, caring is another cover-up, I think, of what's really going on. What's really going on is I'm frightened, and I'm afraid that you do not love me. And so these things that I equate with caring, the ability to give me money, or to do things for me, or to pat me on the head, or whatever needs to happen for me to feel comforted, is not happening. And so I'm afraid that you are not here, and you are not loving me. And again, I use caring in my vocabulary to mean something very specific. I am unconcerned. When I say I do not care, I say I am unconcerned about what's going on right now, or what you need, right? If you need it, and my wife can certainly attest to this, my beautiful woman behind the camera, she can certainly attest to the fact that I say, state what you want, right? I don't, you're right, I don't care, right? I need you to state what it is that you need so that I have the opportunity to provide it, right? And it's not about caring, it is because that is an extension of who I wish to be.
So when you use the word care in that you do care,
yes,
are you conveying simply that you have a concern?
Absolutely, and it's a fear. Again, it is a fear. I have a fear that you may be walking down the wrong road, that you may be damaged for this. Now, when we're talking about concern, is concern in that situation a good thing? So in using caring in that situation, is that correct? Right? And I think that, and we're going into the realm of correct or not correct, okay? Because that means just as many things to many different people as it does to anything else. It's like, I guess, would it be healthy as in a respect of saying, I understand that my concern or my caring, it can be healthy or unhealthy, right? In a situation. Now, if I'm doing it to you, if I say, hey, Bernardine, I'm concerned that this choice that you're making in your life may hurt you, right? And because I'm connected to you, and because I have a vested interest, I guess, that would probably be that transaction stuff that we're talking about to a degree, but that I have a vested interest in your life, or I am, concerned for where you're going. Now, in that respect, I can say, hey, Bernardine, I'm concerned. I just wanted to let you know. That's where it should end, right?
Exactly.
That's absolutely where it should end, because you are the sovereign in your life. I am just an observer. So I'm going to tell you my observation. I'm going to tell you that I'm afraid right?
Yeah.
In this situation, so that I care, right? And from that point on, I'm done. That's the end of my concern in this situation. The rest is all up to you. You can say, hey, I know what I'm doing. There is no need to be concerned. I appreciate the fact that you are concerned for me, you know. And that may even make you feel loved in that situation because somebody has taken the time to look.
Without trying to control.
Absolutely. Hopefully, we can remove that. And I think that maybe this is where we were trying to end up with this whole conversation, is to take the control out of it and to place the sovereignty back into the caring process, right? I don't need to control your life. Though I love you and I do care about you, which means that I do have a fear-based stuff around you to some degree in some points, right? If I see you heading down the road to becoming addicted to heroin, I might show you my concern, right? But because we are wonderful advisors in our lives, because that's basically all we're here as adults, you know, I personally think as mature adults, although I can be quite immature sometimes, by the way. Anyway, as mature adults, we allow the other sovereignty. There's no need to control. And so if I'm afraid, speaking up and saying, hey, you know, Bernardine, I'm afraid and I'm concerned, right? So therefore, again, my caring in my language is I'm concerned, I have a fear, right? And ultimately, yeah, fear of losing you out of my life, right? That's not where we go, right? It's not automatically, you're gonna die. It's like, no. It's like, yes, you're gonna die, Bernardine, don't go, right? You know, we don't go there. I remember sitting on the porch with my sister one time. She was getting back together with a guy that she had been with a long time before and gotten into some major-ass trouble with him. But he was coming to town, and this is the first time she'd seen him in a long time, and she had all of these emotions up, and she was talking to me. We were sitting on the front porch of our place, and she was going, oh, I've got all this stuff up, and you know, I really did love him, and I really did, you know, had all this stuff. And I was concerned that she was going to make a choice to go back with this person who, at the time that they were together, was fairly abusive. And so I said that to her. I said, Shannon, I just wanted to let you know I'm concerned, right? About, you know, this is what I see, right? And this is what happened before, and this is what I see. And I don't know, I think I was probably in my early 20s when we were talking. And she goes, thank you, I get it, but I got a handle on this. I said, okay. And that's where we went. And that's a cat.
And that's where caring, I think, is meant to be.
Right.
You know, an expression of concern without control.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that we got 3 more minutes. 3 more minutes. What can we do for 3 minutes? We could pet the cat. Okay, well, let's go into where do you think we should go with this? Here we are at the show, right at the very end, and I'm extremely grateful that you came out for this. It's been just taping the show has been so much fun. I'm going to have fun doing this on a monthly basis. I'm hoping that you will come back, of course, because you do have such great insight. We are going to be looking at trying to get some real good authors, if we can, get them Skyped in so that we can have a Skype conversation, have a 3-way, because I'd like to be able to have 3 people on this show so that we can have a bunch of different views. We can talk about somebody's book or our experiences with somebody's book, because Bernardine and I and my wife and everybody, we've read some good books, and we've got some really good authors out there, some even local Victoria authors here in Victoria, BC, that we could possibly Skype in and get some of their viewpoints on what we're talking about. So I think that the possibilities of how this show gets to go and where we can really take it is so much fun. You got any suggestions for what we can do next time?
Well, you might need a longer show, but
Yeah.
exploring the word love.
Okay. Well, I think that she's right. I think that that is a huge topic to cover, and it may be a multi-parter. Mm-hmm. I think that we should really tackle it. 2 or 3 parts. Yeah. Okay. We got, and it may be something that we do as a reoccurring theme too, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, because it's going to come back in the way we talk about almost anything, because it comes back down to love, fear. I would love to have a show on talking about anger, how we lie to each other. There's lots and lots of stuff out here that we as people tend to gloss over because we don't think about it, right? And I do a lot of thinking. You do a lot of thinking. The cat does a lot of purring, and we can we can definitely explore that and just keep exploring it. So tune in next time. We're going to be talking about love. We're gonna, I think Bernardine and I are gonna banter some ideas back and forth. My wife is gonna throw her 5 to 10, 20 cents in, and we'll come up with a really good show for you. Remember to post your questions, criticisms, everything on this vlog here. What's that? We may talk about it. And any concerns, the next show that we have, if we've got some good questions and stuff like that, we'll probably bring them up. We're eventually going to go to the point where we're going to have live tweeting and Talia's going to be watching the tweet thing. And if you guys have questions as we're taping the show, because we're going to try eventually to get this live. And as we're on the show, we can get everything going and have this as a live discussion forum as well. So this is me, Drew Arrington, Bernardine Boudreau, Wise Woman in the West. We're going to sign off for tonight, and thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.